A young woman, returning from her favorite artist's concert, vanished without a trace just 5 minutes from her home. Police and volunteers began a search, and it soon became clear that the key to this grim mystery had been right in front of them the entire time. Keeley Bunker was born on September 7, 1999, in the English town of Tamworth. She had 2 other siblings in her family. When she was young, her parents divorced, and Keeley went to live with her mother and stepfather. She adored children and decided back in high school that she wanted to work with them as a teaching assistant or a teacher. To do this, she needed to get a degree in education. But for some reason, Keeley didn't enroll in college right after school. Instead, she decided to work as a waitress and returned to her studies after some time. September of 2019 was a very busy month for her. Keeley celebrated her 20th birthday, planned to attend her favorite artist's concert, and had even received a job offer as a teaching assistant at a local preschool. She was eagerly awaiting her interview, which was scheduled for September 19th, the day after the concert. On the 18th, Keeley and her best friend Monique traveled to Birmingham, a large city about 30 kilometers away, for the concert. The girls had a wonderful time, and after the event ended around 10 p.m., they decided to meet up with a few more friends at a local club. After spending a few hours there, the group prepared to head home. Keeley, Monique, and their mutual friend Wesley all lived in the same area of Tamworth, so they called a single taxi. When they arrived at Monique's house, all 3 of them got out. They had known each other since early childhood and had been friends since kindergarten. Monique suggested that Keeley stay the night to avoid walking home alone, but Keeley decided to go home. She wanted to sleep in her own bed and prepare for her upcoming interview. Besides, Wesley offered to walk her. Keeley herself was quite petite, standing at about 150 centimeters, or 4 feet 11 inches, and weighing only 40 kilograms, or 88 pounds. So Monique was very concerned for her safety at that time of night. But upon hearing that Wesley would see her to her door, she said her goodbyes, and the 2 friends left. It was about a 20-minute walk to Keeley's house. After that time had passed, her friend texted her to ask if she had made it home, but Keeley never replied. So, Monique texted Wesley. The young man replied that they had parted ways about 5 minutes from her house, near a phone booth. Her friend assumed Keeley had gone straight to bed and felt reassured. The next morning, Monique tried calling her, but there was still no answer. She thought until the last moment that her friend was still asleep, but as the hours passed, the situation grew more tense. In the first half of the day, Keeley's mother went into her room and, to her surprise, found that her daughter wasn't there. She then called Monique, hoping Keeley had stayed the night, but was told that she had headed home. After that, her mother posted on social media, asking if anyone had seen Keeley. None of her acquaintances had been in contact with her that day. After 2 p.m., Keeley's mother received a call from the preschool where Keeley was supposed to have her interview. She had never shown up. This deeply alarmed her relatives, as they all knew how much she had wanted that job. After this, her parents contacted Wesley, who had walked with her that night. The young man told them that he had intended to walk her all the way home, but he had too much to drink that evening and felt unwell. So he and Keeley said goodbye and went their separate ways. Wesley felt guilty for not seeing her home as he had originally planned, so he joined her friends and family in the search for Keeley. Around the same time, at about 5 p.m., her parents decided to contact the police. Along with volunteers, they began to scour the area along the route the young woman was supposed to have taken that night. Wesley said they had separated near a phone booth on Wordsworth Avenue. At that point, the girl was not heavily intoxicated, and she had only about 5 minutes left to walk home. The police decided to split the search into 2 directions. While volunteers and investigators examined the route from the phone booth to Keeley's house, other officers, along with Wesley, drove along the path the 2 friends had taken from Monique's house. The young man was cooperative, but when asked to hand over his smartphone, he flatly refused. By examining his phone, the police could have more accurately tracked their route and timeline. However, Wesley accused the investigators of trying to pin the blame on him, as he was the last person to see her that night. Furthermore, he didn't want strangers looking at his photos, messages, and other personal information. However, detectives eventually convinced him that they were only interested in the phone's geolocation data, and he handed it over. Meanwhile, the first discovery was made. In a park near Wordsworth Avenue, a backpack containing women's belongings was found. Keeley's family and friends immediately confirmed it belonged to her. Inside were her clothes, keys, and a powered-off phone. A short time later, volunteers and police heard a piercing scream coming from the same park. Keeley's uncle, who was taking part in the search, had found her. He had decided to check a small stream and shone his flashlight into it. In the darkness, the man noticed something shiny. Moving closer, he realized it was a human hand wearing a bracelet. Keeley was lying there. Her pants and underwear had been pulled down. Police immediately concluded that she had been subjected to a cruel act, and the case was handed over to medical examiners. Awaiting the results, detectives decided to take a closer look at Wesley, as he had seen her last and had been acting quite nervously during conversations with the police. The fact that he initially refused to give them his smartphone was suspicious, as it could have theoretically helped find Keeley alive. Wesley had been friends with her since they were 5. They attended the same kindergarten, and it was very strange that he wasn't willing to provide full cooperation in her search. And here, detectives encountered another interesting detail. When they finally managed to unlock Wesley's phone, it turned out he had given them the wrong passcode. Soon, police obtained CCTV footage from a local rugby club in the park, which showed Wesley and Keeley at around 4:20 a.m. Judging by the footage, an argument had broken out between them, and the young woman was trying to run away from her friend. This all contradicted Wesley's story. He claimed he had left Keeley at the phone booth and gone home, but the rugby club was on the other side of the park. This meant the young man had lied to detectives. Wesley was arrested immediately after, but he was not yet charged in connection with her demise. Investigators assured him they just wanted to clarify some conflicting points, and he acted fairly relaxed. Meanwhile, the police gained access to his smartphone and found something else suspicious. According to the geolocation data, Wesley didn't leave the park until 6 a.m., and then returned there several times until almost noon. Investigators also managed to find several witnesses who had seen Wesley in the park that morning. According to their accounts, the young man was wandering back and forth and looked lost. According to the medical examiner's report, Keeley's life ended as a result of asphyxiation. They also confirmed she had been subjected to a cruel act. Considering all of the above, Wesley became the prime suspect, and charges were brought against him. While he continued to deny his involvement, another crucial piece of evidence was found in the park. Just a few meters from where Keeley was found, Wesley's bank card was discovered. During interrogation, the facts were laid out before him, and he realized there was no point in sticking to his original story. Instead, he told detectives a new account. According to him, he was heavily intoxicated that night and didn't remember entering the park. He only recalled walking down the street and laughing with Keeley. At some point, they started play fighting. Wesley jumped on her back, causing her to fall and hit her head. Of course, this version of events contradicted the actual facts. The cause of Keeley's passing was asphyxiation, not a head injury. Furthermore, particles of her own skin were found under her fingernails, indicating she had tried to free her neck from her attacker's hands. And the very idea that Wesley could have playfully jumped on Keeley's back sounded absurd. The young woman was about 150 centimeters tall, while he stood at 185 centimeters, 6 feet 1 inch. By that time, medical examiners had finished their examination and had isolated a DNA sample from the individual who committed the unlawful act. It was a perfect match to Wesley's DNA. Detectives seized the clothes he was wearing that night and sent them to a lab. Experts found traces of Keeley's DNA and her makeup on his t-shirt. They matched the cosmetics found in her backpack. Upon learning of this evidence, Wesley changed his story once again. He claimed they had actually gone to the park and engaged in a consensual, intimate act. But at some point, the girl lost consciousness and stopped breathing. Wesley stated his hand was on her neck at that moment, but he wasn't squeezing it. He supposedly checked for a pulse and realized Keeley was gone. In a panic, the young man hid her in the stream and covered her with branches, because he didn't know what else to do in the situation. Detectives again dismissed this story as a complete fabrication. In their opinion, Wesley was trying to construct his versions of events around the facts as they were revealed to him. But for the police, it no longer mattered. They had a mountain of evidence, and the case was sent to court. During the trial, Wesley continued to stick to the version that he had accidentally caused Keeley's demise during an intimate act, which was inconsistent with her injuries. When asked why he didn't call for an ambulance or the police, he claimed he was scared and simply didn't know how to explain what had happened. The prosecution presented a much more realistic scenario. It appeared that on that night, Wesley began making unwanted advances toward Keeley, but she was not interested in any intimate relations with him. She had always seen Wesley as a good friend. The young man, who was heavily intoxicated, refused to take no for an answer and decided to get what he wanted by force, resulting in him committing an unlawful act against her and taking her life. Afterward, he hid her, went home, slept for a few hours, and then returned to the park to cover her with more branches. He went back several more times, trying to figure out what to do next. The timeline of these events was confirmed by his phone's geolocation data. The entire small town watched the trial, as such incidents were extremely rare there. The story was also heavily covered on television, and during this time, 5 other young women came forward to the police. They stated that Wesley had made unwanted advances toward them and had engaged in improper acts. 3 of the young women stated that he had engaged in improper acts with them against their will, while the other 2 said he had committed unlawful acts against them. They had all been afraid to go to the police, but after seeing that Wesley had taken a young woman's life, they decided to speak out. As a result, he was faced with 5 additional charges. The jury found him guilty in connection with Keeley's demise in a relatively short time, and in August of 2020, Wesley was sentenced to life in prison. He will be eligible for parole in 30 years, if a special board deems him no longer a danger to society. By then, he will be 51 years old. After the verdict was announced, those involved in the case admitted that Wesley didn't fit the standard profile of an aggressor. He was young, had many friends, and never lacked female attention. But, despite all this, he committed offenses against at least 6 young women, one of whom lost her life. The one who had considered him a close friend since childhood. Share your thoughts on this story in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.